Story 1. No, I have been fighting depression for 28 years. I still dread every time I feel an episode coming on. How long will this spell last? Story 2. I made several lifestyle changes to address the root causes, and it eventually went away. Story 3. I have been working on managing my emotions for almost 2 decades now, and I can say it's a mixed experience. For me, it's been about learning to forgive myself for the hurt I caused when I hadn't yet learned how to manage my emotions. This learning process has helped me avoid compounding the issue. I tried several therapists until I found one and a methodology that met my needs. I highly recommend dialectical behavior therapy and group therapy. After a while, I also allowed myself to try medication, which can help quiet the worst aspects if you find the right ones. This gives you enough peace to process the immediate challenges. I am also learning to reflect on events in my life, both major and minor, that have influenced my present. I aim to see them as simple cause and effect without placing blame on myself or others. For me, it hasn't been so much about completely healing as it is about finding enough puzzle pieces to ensure that one part does not occupy all the space in my life. In summary, it takes a long time, and it's okay to explore different ways to cope. It's also acceptable to rest and seek help, even for something as simple as matching your socks. Story 4. Yes and no. My depression was very situation-specific. Once I left, my life started to get better quickly. Have I fully recovered from it? No, I haven't. I'm much happier now, but the 5 years I lived with depression changed me in some way. It's like a broken bone. You still have a scar on your body no matter how long ago the injury was. It's exactly the same with depression. It traumatizes your brain. Story 5. For me, there is no healing. There is only coping. I have learned to cope much better, so the average day is improved now. I still experience lows. Story 6. Therapy, antidepressants, and plenty of water are important for recovery. Drink it, shower in it, wash your face, wash your hands, soak in the tub, swim in a pool, visit the ocean, and kayak on a lake. Engaging with water can be restorative. My challenges were situational and related to grief, but I still experience episodes connected to specific dates. I keep getting up every day and putting one foot in front of the other. It's the only way. Story 7. No, it's been decades despite medication and therapy. I have good times and really bad times. I'm trying to accept that it's just a part of my life, like managing a chronic disease, because it basically is. But I'm going to be okay. Story 8. Nobody completely heals, and 87% of people experience another episode of depression within 15 years. This is a verified statistic. Story 9. I don't think you can ever truly heal from clinical depression. The best you can do is keep it at bay. Every time I try to stop taking antidepressants, it starts to return, and there is no way I am going back to being that sad, angry person. Story 10. You don't recover from it. You learn to live with it and accept it as part of yourself. You manage it, and eventually, it becomes a small voice in the back of your mind. It may step into the light occasionally, but if you manage it well, it shouldn't trip you. It may only hold your hand in the shadows at most. I have been unmedicated for 20 years now. Everyone's experience is different. This is mine. Story 11. Yes, I believe so. I used to struggle significantly with depression and self-deprecation. Confidence, hobbies, sunshine, and engaging in activities I enjoy, even if they are unconventional, helped me. I still experience urges, but learning that reality isn't as bad as I feel has been beneficial. Story 12. There are different kinds of depression. Many individuals experience chronic severe depression that can be treated, while others may have depression that is resistant to treatment. 10 years ago, I experienced a period of situational depression due to the stress of my partner dying of cancer over 3 years, followed by grief over her death. I attended grief counseling and took antidepressants. Both approaches helped me heal. In the last year, I faced significant challenges, including unemployment, a sick spouse, and long COVID. I recently decided to take antidepressants again. They help lift my mood. It's difficult not to think negatively about my life situation, but they provide support. The key for me is to recognize depression, as it can sneak up on you, and to acknowledge when you have moved past it and are in a better place. It's easy to continue using antidepressants indefinitely. Generally, I'm a happy, positive person, but severe life events can be challenging to cope with and cause emotional distress. There is nothing wrong with admitting that you need help. I like to think of my experience as a difficult period that I needed help to navigate, rather than a chronic condition, as opposed to those who suffer from lifelong depression. Story 13. Change of shift at work results in a better environment and improved sleep. I stopped taking all medications last November and now feel amazing. Story 14. I don't think you ever fully heal from depression. There is a part of you that you left behind. You will always be missing a part of you. It's not necessarily a bad thing that you left that part behind. It's part of the healing process. But it's very hard to feel complete even after you have healed. You must have the capacity to look back and recognize the part of you that was there and what led you to that place in order to heal. You cannot fully forget that part of you. That was and is you. It is the part of you that is vulnerable and the part that needs you to be strong. You must develop coping mechanisms and find stability with those in your life who can see that part of you as well, helping you maintain it without letting it become the negativity that holds you back. Story 15. You don't heal from depression. You go into remission. If it doesn't come back, it is probably due to therapy or medication. Story 16. You can never completely heal from things like depression. Over time, it will hurt less. For me, I talk to as many people who were close to me as possible. It makes a huge difference when you share your feelings with people you trust. Story 17. I'm on the decline of it. I'm finally losing weight, feeling optimistic, have a good career, and have tamed my addictions. It took me 6 years, but I did it. Story 18. I remember feeling and seeing life in a unique way when I was depressed. Now, I appreciate that experience, but it was difficult to deal with. I told myself that I needed to start doing something good with my time. I began learning Russian, which improved my mood a little. That period of depression affected my future in a positive way, I suppose. I also noticed that almost everyone I met had a similar experience during their late teens. Story 19. About 60 years for me, with some really bad episodes and other periods where it wasn't as difficult, mostly just a fact of life. I think coping is more realistic than healing. Story 20. You bury it and it pushes back up when you have a moment of weakness because it finds that crack to wiggle back in. I spend my days working and serving customers with a great smile and a friendly demeanor. I'm lonely, suicidal, and depressed as I drive home, crying to music. Story 21. If caught early, a depressive episode can be temporary, but once it becomes major depressive disorder, it is permanent. You can treat it and learn to cope with it, but you cannot be free of it. Story 22. I was healed after having my first baby. I had severe depression and anxiety before, along with suicidal thoughts, and felt miserable all the time. I had to be on medication, and if I missed one day, my family noticed the difference. My hormones changed when I got pregnant and did an almost complete turnaround. Then, when my baby was born, she gave me a whole new purpose in life and changed how I viewed the world. I'm now no longer on medication, and a psychologist declared that I no longer have depression after an assessment a year ago. However, I'm not by any means living an easier life. In fact, I have become more anxious and face a lot more pressure as a new parent, especially now that she's a toddler. So when people say it can be healed, maybe, but it's not easy. I used to roll my eyes when people said it was just a matter of perspective. Now I don't anymore. It truly is a combination of factors. Yes, I know it's a chemical imbalance, and I understand the science behind it, but it's also about perspective and how you view everything. It's not easy to change, but it can happen. I am now actively trying to cultivate positive thoughts about everything so that I don't go down that dark path again. Story 23. I am much better than I was, but I feel that any upcoming grief or trauma could put me right back in that place. I still have anxiety, but it is manageable. I know several people who have experienced similar situations, and we talk about it. It doesn't seem to completely go away. It's like a scar. You forget about it for a while until you find a reason to remember it is there, and then you see it clearly. Story 24. After a couple of years spent on the couch, I realized that I needed real human connections, not just the ones I coped with on television shows. I signed up for various classes through a discount service, which was a cheap way to get me out of the house. I explored a variety of recreational activities. Then I started dancing salsa, made some salsa friends, and began to enjoy life again. Story 25. Yes, I did. Obviously, I still have days when I'm sad, but it's nowhere near how I felt when I was deeply depressed. I have undergone a lot of therapy and healing from trauma. Story 26. You keep the disease from killing you with your own hand. Medication, therapy, healthy lifestyle, and routine. Story 27. The sadness you experience is always in the back of your mind. It's as if you think, I can't believe I felt that way. And while you can remember the pain, you just don't feel it anymore. Story 28. I am turning 40 this year. My depression has worsened with age. Therapy helps, but it is not a cure. My changing body and hormones definitely affect it. Part of it is related to my upbringing. Some months I feel somewhat okay, but sometimes things get really bad. A couple of months ago, I felt suicidal worse than I ever had before. Whenever I go through the worst times, I am always grateful that I did not go through with ending my life once it passes. However, I feel that I probably will not reach old age and may eventually succumb to my depression. I will not take my life while my husband is alive, as I could never do that to him. Story 29. I don't think I'll ever escape it, but I do heal from episodes of major depression until it inevitably takes over my life for months at a time. Much of it is about coping. Much of it is waiting for my brain to catch up and produce dopamine as it is meant to. Story 30. No, I still fight it daily. There are good days and bad days, but there is never a day without knowing it is there. Story 31. No, it's an everyday battle. I have to use my skills and work hard to avoid slipping into the cycle of depression. Story 32. Depressive thoughts occupied about 80% of my day, or maybe just 1 to 2%. Occasionally, I have a bad day, but nothing like it once was. Story 33. No, but I have managed behavior changes to a point where it is much easier to handle and less disruptive. If I were to eat properly and exercise more, I could reduce it even further, but that aspect has been challenging. Story 34. I am currently working on it. Over the past year, I faced challenges with my self-employed work and neglected my physical health. Since January, I have been getting back on track by exercising, eating well, socializing, and getting out of the house, which has greatly improved my well-being. I also recently accepted a great job to supplement my income, reducing my dependency on my business. For the first time in a few years, things are looking up. Story 35. In my opinion, and speaking from experience, you never completely do. You have your good days and bad days. Story 36. It's going to sound strange, but I was depressed and on medication for a few years. One day I asked myself why. The first realization was that I didn't like many people and how they treated me. So I thought, why not go far away from those people? Next, I realized I had the right to live, be happy, and do anything I want in this world. I decided to travel, experience new things, and learn about different cultures. It was a huge eye-opener. I got off the medication and have been fine ever since. Part of it was relationships and breakups that I took very hard, but I used that pain to gain wisdom. Story 37. When I was 17, I had a youthful optimism. That is what I want back. After starting Prozac, I became apathetic. Story 38. I was diagnosed at the age of 11. I am now 38, and with the current state of the world, my depression has been difficult. This winter has also been particularly challenging. Story 39. I have learned to manage the highs and lows of manic depression. It hasn't been easy. I spent years homeless or in transitional housing, but now I live on my own with my cat and an emergency fund, thanks to what I taught myself with large language models. Over time, I have become hyper-aware of my episodes, good enough at masking that I could probably win an Oscar. Improv was the only place I could express emotions society frowns upon, but writing and coding became my real outlets. Mania, when channeled correctly, fuels creativity, and tools like Klein and Alma running QWQ32B let me build things I never thought possible, learning at lightning speed. My job in inventory management helps too. I can escape the public when needed, and in the right phase of mania, I thrive, energized and unstoppable. But the crash always comes. Sleep deprivation breeds irritability, then despair, and then the struggle to hold it together in public. Trauma and mania feed each other, and I have seen firsthand how stress worsens mental illness, especially on the streets. A social worker once told me it's rare to see someone in my position still working, but I have always worked. Even without a job, I treated learning artificial intelligence like a full-time career, and now it's paying off. My first experience with homelessness followed a severe head injury. I spent 8 years in cheap transitional housing, not realizing it was meant to be temporary until I lost everything by force. That was the push I needed. Now, in a safer and more stable place, I have held down 2 jobs, built a 7-month emergency fund in under a year, and finally have control over my life. Story 40. I am not diagnosed, but based on what I have read, I likely am or was. I believe the problem with depression is that the only person who can fix the situation is yourself. This is simple to say but hard to do. It's as if you don't know how to swim and you are stuck in the middle of the ocean, slowly drowning without a life vest or anything to help you. You have to figure out a way to learn how to swim and survive. That being said, I think the only way to address it is through baby steps. 1. Understand how your mind works. Reflect on your thoughts. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Identify your triggers and what releases serotonin while reducing cortisol. Discover what makes you happy and what alleviates stress. Consider therapy if needed. Exercise regularly. Engage in physical activity. Commit to establishing a consistent schedule. Write down the illogical aspects of depression. Create a step-by-step solution to tackle the problem. Spend time with friends and family. Surround yourself with supportive and loving people. Story 41. I struggle with it every day. Sometimes it takes everything inside of me to get out of bed. I tend to contemplate my end quite often. I am always thinking about the difficult things in life. The worst part is that I am always pretending to be happy for others. I love seeing the smiles on people's faces and watching their days get better. Depression and happiness are not opposites. I can and do experience them at the same time often. Story 42. Yes, as I've grown up, I've learned I am not depressed. I am a person with depression. When my environment isn't horrible and I can live my life, I am generally a happy person. Additionally, starting hormone replacement therapy as a transgender person at 16 saved my life. I had a hormonal imbalance before, and the use of my medication has greatly impacted my life and how I think and handle my emotions. Unfortunately, I may not be able to get it anymore, as it is basically an antidepressant for me. However, hard times will always come, and there will always be struggles. It is possible to get significantly better. Sending much love to anyone struggling right now. Story 43. I find small moments of bliss here and there, but for the most part, I stick to a routine that includes going to the gym and spending time outdoors. This routine helps keep my depression at bay. Story 44. No, it's more like distance running, which I also do. You work at it daily, forever. Some days you run better, some days you run worse, but every day you keep going. If you stay consistent, you get better at it. Story 45. I still experience depression from time to time, but the struggle with suicidal thoughts between ages 13 and 31 ended after an intense therapy and prayer session 6 years ago. I have forgiven others and myself. I have healed, and I now value my life. There are seasons for everything, and feeling depressed occasionally is normal and can be healthy. Story 46. Yes and no, it's not letting it impact you. I lost my father in college. It was sudden. He was diagnosed in November and passed just before Christmas. My long-term girlfriend immediately broke up with me for someone with better prospects. I left college halfway through my junior year because my college fund was wiped out due to my father's medical bills. I closed his company down and went to work to keep my mother from losing the house. I made sure my brother finished high school. I thought I was doing everything I was supposed to do until 2 to 3 years later when I met up with all my old friends who had degrees and were working in the technology industry I was supposed to be in. They told me my ex just got married and how great she was doing. They were all making six figures and had every opportunity in the world, while I was fixing small business networks and repairing computers. I broke down that weekend. That's when it all hits you. You push everything off to survive. When you finally realize how depressed you are and how you don't have any help or anyone to support you in your darkest moment, that's when your world ends. I had no therapist, no girlfriend, and my career was going nowhere. You just realize you hit a wall, and you either give up or start making changes because no one else will do it for you. I forced myself to go back to college to finish my degree and found someone who believed in me. It took me 4 more years, and I knew I was always being judged internally by doubt. You have to press on, but you know the signs now and are aware of their presence. Sorry for such a long response, but remember the scene in Fight Club where they pull the guy out of the Quick Mart and ask what he wanted to be in life? He wanted to be a veterinarian, but it required too much school. So Tyler tells him if he's not working on becoming a vet in 6 months, he's going to kill him. Kind of felt like that. Story 47. I can say I did, but that was because my situation was specific. Once the situation changed, I was able to heal. Story 48. Personally, I wouldn't say I completely healed from it. There are still minor episodes every now and then. Do I feel better now than I did 5 to 10 years ago? Yes. Do I recognize my triggers and what helps me manage them to the best of my ability? Yes. I don't know if anyone who experiences depression truly heals from it. I don't like sugarcoating or pretending to be overly happy and positive. I think that can be just as problematic. I believe it's entirely possible to slip back into a depression. And that's okay, we are human. But I do know that it's possible to feel better. Story 49. The first time I experienced it was about 10 years ago. However, this time I was more familiar with the signs and was able to seek support early on, preventing it from taking hold of me like before. Story 50. I am 37 years old and have spent over 25 years on medication. I have been hospitalized for inpatient treatment and have undergone various types of therapies. I have accepted that I may never be a happy person. I may have experiences that bring me joy, but I do not believe I will ever feel anything other than a sense of emptiness. Now, I focus on finding whatever helps alleviate the pain, even if it is just for a moment. This may not be the answer you were hoping for, but it is better than the empty promises associated with each new therapy. Story 51. You will need to change your mindset to overcome it. As others have said, focus on the good in your everyday life and try to find some tools such as medication or therapy that can give you that extra edge to help. It is not easy, especially when you're spiraling, but it's all about having a mantra or reminder. For me, I have a daughter who is my ray of light, even though she drives me crazy at times. She can always tell if I'm feeling down, and knowing that helps me try to look on the bright side. It's tough with everything going on in the world, and sometimes life can be overwhelming. However, there is always something to look forward to. Just keep going, and those dark clouds can become blue skies from time to time. Story 52. I haven't. It's always there, lingering. It always has been and always will be a part of who I am. I've come to accept this. With the help of therapy, I learned how to not sweat the small stuff and not waste my time dwelling on things beyond my control. Taking happiness where I can find it. Pouring my energy into my hobbies and putting more effort into relationships has also helped. Story 53. Depress. Being held down. Motivation. Begin to move and prevent being held down. Sometimes it meant taking a step out of bed and then stepping back into bed. Sometimes it was walking to the local corner store, going to the gym, or visiting the park. But I always focused on just getting movement started. That was a significant key thought for me. Story 54. I have been on antidepressants for 22 years. I still see a therapist every 2 weeks. I manage my depression pretty well, but I am not immune to it creeping back into my life. Hopefully, you have a strong support system. Reaching out to family or friends when things are dark is very difficult. but it can save your life. Just remember, there are people who love you. Do not forget that. You are not alone, my friend. Story 55. No, I have learned to accept living with an absence of acute symptoms as a baseline. I am in my 40s and have struggled since before I turned 10, and it remains a day-by-day, sometimes hour-by-hour experience. Story 56. Currently, it is the worst it has ever been. It is really challenging me this time. I just came out of a good period. Story 57. No, it has been 20 years since I was diagnosed. I am on medication that helps tremendously, but I can never stop taking it. Story 58. I'm not sure I would say I am completely healed because it has changed me as a person. However, I started practicing gratitude and actively making an effort every day to find reasons to be happy. It has helped, and things are different now. But I can't help feeling like I am always one inconvenience away from spiraling. Story 59. Yes, I think it can be cured for some people, especially if caught early enough. Even if your suffering has lasted for years, with diligence, medication, therapy, and alternative treatments, I believe it is possible to find a cure. Therapy must be a critical part of the treatment process, as there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It takes effort to find the right combination of therapy, medication, and treatments. I was diagnosed with cyclothymia and treatment-resistant major depressive disorder with anxiety. I have undergone cognitive behavioral therapy and eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy alongside medications and transcranial magnetic stimulation treatments. It took nearly 10 years to discover what works for me. I have been off medication for about 4 years, and I revisit transcranial magnetic stimulation every year. I don't know if I'm cured, but I'm definitely much better than I was. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, and right now, I'm in the sun. Story 60. I experienced a very intense period of depression after being laid off from a job many years ago. I was able to find a new job relatively easily, but I disliked it. I earned less, the workplace was in decline, and my office was almost completely isolated from others at a time when I should not have spent so much time alone. I spent my days contemplating driving my car off a bridge or shutting myself in the garage with the car running. The only thing that prevented me from harming myself was the thought of how devastated my husband would be if I did. Somehow, I managed to hold on for about a year in that job before finding something new, and the change of scenery and circumstances helped tremendously with my mental state. I'm still shocked I didn't take that step, though. Today, I feel pretty good. I don't know if I'm fully healed, but I feel good enough. Story 61. After experiencing depression for over 20 years, I found healing after taking low-dose ketamine. I was initially skeptical. However, I have been off my antidepressant for more than a year, and I am feeling great. The treatment also included therapy. Story 62. No, it is a constant process. You can function above most of it where it is essentially gone, but it all requires continuous effort and healthier practices. Story 63. I have always viewed major depression as similar to diabetes, not cancer. You cannot eliminate it completely, but with proper treatment, daily maintenance, and vigilance, it will not harm you either. I have been in maintenance mode for 14 years. Story 64. Mine comes and goes. I also have chronic illnesses and severe childhood trauma. However, with medication, therapy, and understanding support system, and changing how I think, they have become easier and do not tend to last as long. I bounce back a lot quicker. My anxiety, on the other hand, can be quite challenging. Story 65. I cannot comprehend the statement, completely jealous from it. I am better off than I used to be, and I feel like I will continue to learn more and manage it better. The thought of it being completely gone has never occurred to me. Story 66. I have a genetic mutation. My body does not produce what my brain needs to feel happy, stable, and relaxed. As it stands, it will be a lifelong endeavor to manage it. Story 67. For me, I feel completely different since I changed my lifestyle. Working out daily and eating healthy, along with getting sunlight, has made a significant difference. Depression can creep in when you become lazy, creating an endless cycle. Story 68. Depression may never heal completely, but I can tell you that I have the tools and experience to manage this problem. Years ago, my depression made me feel really down. Now I have options like taking a long walk or talking with someone close to me. Please never give up. Story 69. Yes, but mine was triggered by hormones such as puberty and pregnancy. Once my hormones settled into normal levels, my mood improved. Obviously, depression is not the same for everyone. Additionally, although I experienced hopelessness, despair, anxiety, and self-loathing, I never had suicidal thoughts. Story 70. I started thinking for myself and focusing on what makes me happy without judgment from others. People can be selfish and often do not care, even family members. It is essential to choose yourself, love yourself, and pursue what makes you happy, regardless of whether it is considered weird or not accepted by others. Additionally, saving money and having financial freedom can positively impact your mental well-being. Keep working hard, even on your worst days. It will pay off and help you feel better. Story 71. I was diagnosed with severe clinical depression when I was 14. 2.5 years later, I had my first manic episode. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after a 6-month stay with intense monitoring in a psychiatric unit when I was 19. Story 72. Absolutely not. I don't let it control me anymore. My depression used to be in the driver's seat, but now it's in the passenger seat. Story 73. I'm 41 and have felt better in the past, but it's always there in some form. It has been difficult the last couple of years despite being on medications that have worked well for me before. I saw this written in a subthread, and it resonated. I don't want to actively die, but would be okay not waking up tomorrow. Story 74. I don't think you ever completely get over it. I know how to handle it much better now, and the episodes are shorter and not as intense as they used to be. I was hospitalized twice for suicidal thoughts. After finding the right medication and a great therapist, I'm much better. I'm nowhere near as depressed as I have been at times in my life. I'm in my mid-60s and have been dealing with this all my life. Story 75. Not completely. I take medication and try to stay active. I make an effort to tell my therapist when I am struggling. I tend to shut people out. I have to remind myself that my brain is misleading and that I am not my thoughts. Story 76. My depression was caused by physical pain and the trauma I experienced from doctors who gaslight and misdiagnosed me. I am feeling much better now. Story 77. I am still fighting it because my father and brother were lost to it. I lost my father in 2010 and my brother in 2021. I know how much it hurts to be left behind, and I have vowed not to do that to anyone else. It's a struggle, but a struggle worth fighting. Story 78. For years, I thought I had overcome it. Recently, I've been feeling like it's creeping back in. It's not as bad as it was when I originally experienced it, but you never forget that feeling. Story 79. No, there is no winning. There is no victory. There is surviving. There is learning to live with your demons. During my darkest times, it seemed like one episode bled into the next, with maybe a day in between if I was lucky. Now, I have gone 5 years without what I would describe as a full-blown episode of bottomless depression. And when it did happen, I was able to recover much quicker than before. This is what living with depression looks like. Story 80. A 42-year-old man with deep depression connected to complex post-traumatic stress disorder among a range of other mental health issues due to years of childhood trauma does not heal from depression. The best he can do is manage it. He spent the entire day trying to find something to do, watch, or read, and finally, after 9 hours, he decided on One Piece. It is challenging, and the only permanent escape is highly socially unacceptable. Story 81. Clinical depression cannot be cured. I have been battling it for half my life, but I like to think I am doing okay. Story 82. No, as an unhealthy person, I ignore it and feel happy after an episode or two. Is it a great way to handle it? Probably not, but it's currently working, so whatever. Story 83. I took ibogaine to get through a difficult period. It has been almost 4 years, and I am still doing okay. I was also able to ward off postpartum depression by taking placenta capsules. That being said, I can manage mostly by preventing and catching it early. Getting enough sleep and avoiding disturbing media helps. I also quit social media except for Reddit. If I feel an episode approaching, the best thing I can do is spend time with friends and go into nature. I have accepted that I have this condition and will need to remain vigilant to prevent it from overwhelming me. Story 84. I still exercise and maintain cleanliness and hygiene, which has been helpful. Talking to people also helps, even though I sometimes experience really difficult episodes. Story 85. If you have depression, it never truly goes away. You just find ways to cope with it, whether they are healthy or not. That being said, anyone can feel depressed for a period of time, but having chronic depression is not curable. Story 86. I don't think complete healing is possible. Depression isn't like a broken bone. Rather, it is a lifelong condition that exists on a spectrum. It requires monitoring and can be re-triggered by different life circumstances. You can reach a level of feeling really good with no problems, but the risk of it returning is always present. Story 87. I don't think that's something you come back from completely. A doctor told me that I would never feel like I did before. Today, I'm off medication and happy with a fulfilling life, but there's still a part of me that I know I won't regain. It's as if there is a certain stress that comes from your aging body no longer being in its prime, and that stress is depressing. Even once you accept that you are mortal and getting older, there is an acknowledgement that things used to be better. There is something about living life now, knowing that it used to be better physically, mentally, or emotionally. Story 88. I don't think it's possible to completely heal from depression. I experienced 2 episodes, one of which lasted for many years and brought me close to the brink. The other episode was much different, more like the pervasive sadness many people associate with depression. However, I recognized it for what it was and sought therapy again. The key is self-awareness and learning through therapy how to identify your feelings, why you feel that way, and when it's necessary to seek professional help. The insidious thing about depression is that it leads us to believe all our negative thoughts are deserved. They're our fault, we're not good enough, we don't deserve to be happy or successful, and we're alone, and that's how it should be. Total nonsense, of course, but there it is. Story 89. I don't think you ever fully heal from depression. You just become more capable of handling it better over time. That has been my experience. Story 90. It comes and goes, but the only difference now is that when it comes, I don't let it control my life. I take steps to do things that I know will bring me happiness. Even though it might not bring happiness in the moment, I know that when I look back and reminisce, it will. Story 91. I'm 32 years old. I have treatment-resistant depression, and I don't remember a time in my life when I wasn't depressed, even while medicated. Story 92. It is not completely healed because I worry about it returning. Feels like another life. I do not know how I transitioned from where I was to where I am now, but it somehow happened. Story 93. No, but I learned how to manage it. Sometimes I personify my depression and talk back to it because it is a negative force that creates false narratives and makes me feel sad for no reason. Additionally, sunshine and intense exercise help, unfortunately. Story 94. I have been taking antidepressants for years. They are doing wonders, but I still get the feeling of dread sometimes. I do not know what they are doing to my body, but I know I cannot go back to the way I was before. I will be taking them forever. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.